Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm doing a full solo playthrough of Primal: The Awakening. This cooperative boss battler takes place in a fantasy world where humans are struggling to survive against monstrous beasts. We play as hunters on a quest to defend humanity and uncover the mystery behind the awakening. Now I went ahead and I got everything set up for a solo game. You have to play with a minimum of 2 characters, so this setup is exactly as it would be for 2 players. I'm going to be playing the Prologue scenario. You can either play this game doing one-off scenarios, or you can play a full campaign with linked scenarios, and when you do that, this Prologue will be the first scenario that you play. I have Mira here all set up and ready to go. You can see from the image she uses the great bow, and so I have her starting weapon right here at level 1. Because this is the first scenario, everything's going to be at level 1, so we have the base helm, we have a base armor, and she starts with this level 1 Aylmore potion. We also have her unique deck of action cards. We're only going to be using the starting cards, so the ones that have an S here at the bottom of the card. We're going to shuffle up all of those cards into a deck and then deal our starting hand of 5 cards. We also took her starting mastery card. You can see here. And you want to have it on the unfocused side. We then have a player reference sheet here that explains a lot of the keywords that will appear in her action cards. And that's it. That's Mira all set up. We did the same thing for Darian. You can see he uses the great sword. I also randomly gave him the aggro token and the first player token. You then need to set up the monster that you're going to be fighting. After all, this is a boss battler. For the prologue, you're going to be fighting Varaxin, this little dragon guy here. You're going to take his unique board and his unique set of behavior cards. You want to shuffle those up and deal out 3. You then need to take the stance cards, the peril cards, and the objective cards. The prologue says to take the ones with the 0 in the corner, as well as that symbol on these 2 cards. You then want to take the 10 basic attrition cards and shuffle them up into a little deck right there. Varaxin starts with 10 health, and there you go. They're all set up. You put them in the middle. We start right here in front. We've placed a couple of cardboard terrain pieces out on the map according to the rule book. I'll explain those later. And then you just want to put the round marker on the 1 of 10. And there we go. That's it. That's set up completely done. Our goal is pretty straightforward. We just need to take down Varaxin all the way to 0 health before 10 rounds are up. Now, the first thing we do each round is have a consume phase. This is where we could take any action that has the consume keyword, sort of like our potion right here. Now, the Aylmore is for healing, so we don't need to worry about that right now. We're going to skip that phase and move right on to the second phase, which is the monster upkeep phase. The first thing we would do is refresh the behavior cards, but we don't do that in the first round. We then give the monster 1 struggle token per character. We're playing with 2 characters, so the monster is going to get 2 struggle tokens. Once Varaxin has accumulated 3 times the number of players, so in our case 6 struggle, they're going to get to take an attack on us. Luckily, we have some special abilities on our cards that can help remove some of that struggle to keep that from happening. And now we get to the player turns phase. Since Darian has the first player marker, they're going to go first, and the first thing that they can do is choose whether or not they want to move. So they can either just stay where they are, and if they do that, they're going to get one of these threaten tokens. Now, those tokens can have various effects. It basically makes it a little more dangerous for you. So all things being equal, it's better to avoid getting this token. Alternatively, they can move to an adjacent sector. You can see on the map here, there's only 4 sectors, so they can move to one of the 2 adjacent ones, but that's going to cost a stamina. And the way you pay for stamina is on your cards. As you can see at the bottom of each of those cards, each one can be discarded for a stamina. And I think they do want to move, so they're going to discard this card right here in order to move right over to here. Now we need to take a closer look at the card that they discarded because there's a little special ability on there. It says Quick Attack. When you discard this card from your hand, deal your base weapon damage. So that's exactly what we just did. We discarded it from our hand in order to pay for the stamina. And thematically, as he was running to flank the monster, he did a quick little attack with his great sword. And down here, it shows the base damage that the sword does, in this case, 2. So we're going to put 2 damage markers here on the monster. Now, if you look closely here at Varaxin's stance card, you can see here it shows 2, and then that symbol means per player. Again, we have 2 players, so for us, every 4 damage that we inflict will cause a wound and will let us move that marker down. So what we're really trying to do is wound the monster 10 times, which is going to require us to do a bunch of damage and convert them into wounds. Now, the stance card also shows that when Varaxin hits us, they're going to do 1 damage to us. And this little mark with the 7 means that once their health goes down to the 7 mark, they're then going to change their stance to level 2, which will look like this. And as you can see, once that happens, we're going to need 3 times 2 or 6 damage before we can create a wound. So they're going to get stronger and stronger as we go. Now that I've chosen whether or not to move, I can now play cards from my hand in order to take actions. And I can play as many cards as I want in any order, but each card has a cost at the top. That's the amount of stamina that we have to spend in order to play the card. And just like with movement, we spend cards in order to do that. So we're going to be spending cards in order to play cards. Now the cards come in 4 different colors: yellow, green, red, and blue. And I'll explain what those colors mean and what they do as we go along. But the one important thing to note right now is that the red cards are mostly used for attacking. But there's a restriction on playing them, and we need to come back here to the stance card, because this circle here shows where Varaxin is weak at the moment, where they're vulnerable, where we can attack them. This bottom quadrant shows where Varaxin's head is. And so right now in their current stance, only the head and the rear or the tail are vulnerable. Those are the only quadrants where we can play red cards and attack them. Right now, Darian moved into the flank. And right now the flanks are covered. He's protecting himself with his wings right now. So we cannot play red cards. That's totally fine because I only have 1 red card. I'm going to save it up for the next round. We're going to kind of build up right now. So I think the first card that Darian wants to play is this one right here, this Deflecting Blade. Now, yellow cards are parry cards, and they're considered defensive cards. That's what that little symbol up there means. Green cards are dodge cards, and those are also considered defensive cards. The blue maneuver cards and the red attack cards are considered offensive cards, and those have that symbol right there. Those categories can be important for, different special abilities and things like that, so just keep that in mind. I'm played a defensive parry card, and it has a special ability right there which says, search your deck for a card with slash and add it to your hand, then reshuffle your deck. Now, first things first, it has a 1 cost on it, so I need to pay with one of my cards. Each one of these is giving me 1 stamina. I'm just going to go ahead and discard this one. And now I can search my deck for a card that has the keyword slash at the bottom. So there's one right there I could get. But I think I'm looking for this one, this double slash. So I'm going to take that one, add it to my hand, reshuffle my deck. Now, when we play our action cards, we're going to be playing them into a sequence, going from left to right. And that's because a lot of the cards have special abilities that trigger depending on other cards in the sequence. Maybe you need a certain color to be played before the card you just played or after the card you just played for the special ability to trigger. In fact, a great example here is Darian's great sword. It shows down here these two little red marks. That means that this special ability triggers if you play 2 red cards in a row in your sequence. When that happens, you're going to get to increase the damage of that second attack, in this case by 2, and also remove one of the struggle tokens. So Darian really wants to play 2 red cards in a row. He wants to double attack. And now we are all set up for that because we now have 2 red cards in our hand. We're going to save those for next time, and in fact, I think he's done taking actions. Now, in addition to playing cards, he could have taken any action that has the keyword action on it. He doesn't have anything like that. And also, once per turn, you can take a revive action. That's what you would do maybe if one of your characters gets KO'd. We'll worry about that when it happens. Once you're done taking actions, we then move on to the attrition phase. We're going to draw the top card of the attrition deck. And that's essentially how many times Varaxin is attacking Darian, sort of retaliating. But because Darian played 1 defensive card, he parried the attack. Right? Thematically, that's what's happening here. So both the yellow and the green cards would help defend against these attrition attacks. If that number had been 2, he would have suffered attrition damage, which is basically just equal to the monster's attack value. In Varaxin's case here, that would have been 1. So the more aggressively that you play, the more of those offensive cards that you play, the more danger you're in of taking damage during the attrition phase. Also, if you're threatened because you didn't move this round, then you would actually draw 2 attrition cards and take the worst one, the higher number. So that's one reason why you want to avoid being threatened. But Darian emerges unscathed. Now, one thing he should have done at the end of his action phase is if you have 2 or more cards left in your hand, you actually get a stamina token. And that can be spent, to cover any of the cost, either of moving or playing a card. Okay, now to end their turn, we would now take their sequence and discard it. And you're going to want to discard these cards in order from left to right. We only have 1, so we don't have to worry too much about that. You now get to draw back up to your hand size, which in our case is 5. And then the monster is going to turn towards the player with the aggro token, which in this case is Darian. And there we go. That was Darian's sort of simple first turn. Now Mira gets to take her turn. First thing is always you get to decide whether you want to stay where you are or move to an adjacent location. Let's look at her cards and see. Oh my goodness. Wow. So she was dealt a ton of red cards here. So she might want to attack this turn. Yeah, I think Mira's going to want to come around and get right behind Varaxin. Now to do that, she has to pay a card. Okay, I think she's going to discard this card here to pay for that. And now she's going to go all in on attacking. So the first card she's going to play is this Silent Arrow. Now there's quite a lot of things going on here. So first of all, it's free to play. It also has the keyword stealth. Now we can look at her player reference to see what stealth means. It says action cards with the keyword stealth do not trigger reaction icons, which contain color or card type icons when they are played in your sequence. Now, to explain what that means, we're going to need to go up here to Varaxin's behavior cards. Because one of the clever things about this game is the monsters don't really have their own turn. It's not like we're taking turns and then the monster is going to get a turn. Rather, the monster reacts in different ways depending on what we're doing. And the main form of those reactions is with these behavior cards. So there's 3 cards up here, and on the back they have a symbol, which basically tells you when that card is going to be triggered. Right now we have this icon, which means that when a hero starts their turn in the rear, then that card would get flipped. Now Mira didn't start her turn there, she moved in there. But if she's there at the start of her next turn, then that card will get flipped and will resolve it. These other two cards mean that they're going to get resolved when we play a red attack card. Now, because there's two of them, we would get to pick which one to resolve first. But because of the stealth keyword, we ignore that. We're not going to trigger those reactions. She's super stealthy. Varaxin doesn't even know what's happening. Now, this card has a sort of further requirement, which is while you're the aggro player, you cannot play this card to your sequence. Luckily, Darian is the aggro player at the moment. You'll see how we draw aggro here in just a second. Now, also keep in mind that this card has aim there at the bottom. These words at the bottom of the cards are like traits, and they don't have sort of an inherent special ability associated with them. They merely trigger other cards. So now, because it's a red card, we get to take our basic attack with our weapon here. The base attack of our great bow is 2. But you can also see here that when we play a red card, we also get volley 1. So we can go back to our player reference here. These cards are fantastic. And it says volley X. You may discard X cards from the top of your deck and deal damage to the monster equal to your weapon level for each offensive card discarded this way. Cool, so since it's volley 1, we just flip over the top card, and oh, it was a defensive card, so we don't get to add any damage. If that had been either a blue or a red card, we would get to add 1 damage because it's a level 1 great bow. So we're just doing 2 damage, but that's going to give us the 4 damage that we need in order to inflict a full wound. So we just remove the 4 damage, and boom, convert it to a wound. That was her first attack. She's going to keep going. Again, you can just keep playing cards as long as you want to or can. This is going to be her next play, this blinding shot. Now look at this. This card is also stealth, so we're not triggering these reactions. Now we do need to pay the cost there, so I'm going to discard this card right here. So we have another attack card, but the special ability says that if the previous card in your sequence has aim, then you get to inflict blind. Well, what do you know? Our previous card does have aim, so let's see what blind does. It says that when you inflict blind, choose a peril card in play. That peril is considered to be blank until the start of your next turn. Place the blind token on that peril card to show it is blank. So this is the peril card, and I haven't really talked about it, but let's see what it says here. It's fire breathing. It says that at the end of the round, if the aggro player is threatened, place a fire terrain in the front sector. So this is just a bad thing that's in play that we have to, keep an eye on. Now, that wasn't going to trigger anyway because Darian wasn't threatened. That was another reason why I wanted him to move. But with blind, that wouldn't trigger, so it's not going to do anything right now. So let's just go ahead and do our damage. Again, we're going to be doing 2 damage, but we have volley 1. We missed with the volley. That's a shame. We're just doing 2 damage. Now, one more thing happens because we have this objective here. At the front of the card, it shows 2 symbols. Those are the offensive card symbol. And so that basically means that you trigger this if you've played 2 offensive cards in your sequence. And it says that if you are in the rear sector, place a counter on this card. When there are 2 times the number of players, so in our case 4 counters on this card, Varaxin suffers 2 wounds. Then remove this card from the game. So we have these little counters here. We're going to place one of those on it because we are in the rear sector. We are hitting the tail, and if we can get 4 hits on the tail, then that's going to do 2 wounds. Not damage, but 2 wounds. That's huge. There we go. Mira is completely done. She has 1 card left. She'll save for the next round. Because she has less than 2 cards, she isn't going to get that extra token. Oh, and I mentioned moving aggro. That's what that little symbol here on the cards is. Because that's gray, that means that that doesn't trigger aggro. But if she were to play a card like this with the red symbol, that would move the aggro token over. She didn't play that though, so aggro is going to remain with Darian. Then going to discard the sequence. Again, we do them in the order it was played. They're going to draw up to 5 cards. 3, 4, 5. Oh, we skipped the attrition phase. Hold on. Gotta do attrition. That's a 1, and she did not play any defensive cards, so she is going to take 1 damage. We can just put the damage on her here. The amount of health that we have is equal to the number here on the helm plus the number here on the armor. So 5 plus 4, 9 health. If we ever take 9 damage, then you get KO'd, and I'll explain what happens then when it happens. Okay, the monster would then turn to face the aggro player, which it's already doing, so it's going to stay right there. Since both players have had their turns, that means the round is over. Any end of the round effects trigger, which would be like this one right here on this peril card, but because of the blindness, it wouldn't trigger. It wouldn't do anything anyway. We advance the turn marker, and there we go. That's the end of round 1. Start of round 2, I think we're going to skip the consumables. We don't want to heal. We'll go straight to monster upkeep, and we're going to do a behavior refresh, which is basically we're going to take the lowest numbered behavior card and discard it. And then just immediately replace it. Now we're going to get a reaction from the first blue card that's played as well as the first red card. And then once again, they're going to get 2 struggle tokens, which is going to put them up to 4. When they get to 6, that's going to trigger an attack. Now we go to the player turns phase, and at this point, whoever has the aggro token would become the first player. The aggro stayed with Darian, so he's going to remain the first player. Very first thing is always movement. This is the turn that he wanted to fight, so I think he's going to just stay right where he is, face to face with Varaxen, which means he's going to take one of those threaten tokens. But that means he doesn't have to spend a card, which is good, and now he can start playing. Okay, I think the first thing that he's going to play is this Voice of the Dragon. It's going to cost 1, so... oh, he'll just use the token. Perfect. Now, this is a parry card, and it has a couple of keywords here. This says that once per turn during another player's turn, either before or after any actions, you may perform an assist by discarding a card with the keyword assist from your hand. And if you do, the active player gets to draw a card. That can be really powerful if you do that at the right time. And when you're playing solo, it's easy to forget that you have that ability. The other keyword here is resilience. Resilience says that after you suffer damage, you may reveal a card with the keyword resilience from your hand to draw a card. We're not using the card for either of those two things. Instead, we're playing it to our sequence for its special ability. It says to reduce the stamina cost of each red card, attack card you play this turn by 1. That's going to be great because we're going to be attacking like crazy. Okay, I think we're going to play this first. Its cost has been reduced by 1, so it's now 0. And this double slash just says that if the next card that you play in the sequence is an attack card, then you reduce the cost of that one by 1 as well. Very good. So we're just going to be doing a regular attack here. That's 2 damage. But we're going to get a little bit of a bonus because of this terrain feature here. It's kind of hiding there. We haven't talked about those yet. But that particular plant lets us increase our attacks by our weapon level, which in this case is 1. So we're going to be doing 3 damage. That's going to take this to 5, so we can get rid of 4 and convert it into a wound. Beautiful. Now here's the problem. That was definitely not stealthy, so we are going to trigger this behavioral reaction. We just flip it over. Oh, and it's a blazing assault. It says that the active player discards the top 3 cards of their deck. Then that player suffers a damage unless a defensive card is discarded this way. Okay, so we're just going to flip over 3 of these cards and hope to see one of these defensive cards. Boom, and there it is right there. So we are not going to suffer any damage. But we're not out of the woods yet. You can see down here, it's going to discard 2 of these struggle tokens. So it's going to go from 4 back to 2. And that's going to let it repeat this ability. Now, if it didn't have the struggle tokens, it would ignore this, but it had it. So here we go again. 1. Nope, that's not going to do it. Oh no, 2. That's not going to do it. Ah, there we go. So this just gets discarded. And a new card is immediately drawn to replace it. Okay, that was fun. Let's do it again. This time with a precise strike. Now this would normally have a cost of 3, but we are doing -1 from this card and -1 from this card. So we only need to spend 1. And so we'll spend that. Now a bunch of stuff is going to happen. First of all, this attack inflicts vulnerable. So it says here that while the monster is vulnerable, when you or another player deal damage to the monster, you may discard the vulnerable token to double that damage. And then at the end of the round, if the token is still in play, you would remove it. Okay, here we go. There's the vulnerable token. Hopefully Mira can take advantage of that. And now, because we've played 2 reds in a row, boom, we activate the ability of the Great Sword. We're going to deal 2 more damage, so that's going to be a total of 4, and remove a struggle. We can convert that immediately into a wound. And if you look at Darian's Mastery card, we also get to put a token on that card. On the top of the card, there's a little 2. That means that once we have 2 tokens on that card, we can flip it to its focus side and get a nice special ability. And now, as we mentioned before, Varaxin is down to 7 health, and that's its progression number. So it's going to progress to its next stance. We can remove that one. Boom. Stance number 2. When you change stances, you also change peril. So now we have peril card number 2. Wall of Flames. It says that when a behavior card with Firestorm is revealed, then you're going to immediately put a fire terrain in the front sector. So some of these behavior cards might have Firestorm written on them. Now, I'm not sure what happens to this blind token. I'm not sure if it transfers to this next peril. I don't think that it does. So we're just going to put that off to the side. And now there's an when revealed special ability here. It says Varaxin gains 1 times the number of players, so 2 struggle. So there we go, just jumping up to 3 struggle now. Okay, I think that is all Darian wants to do. Now he could play this jumping slice, but I think he's going to hold on to it. Oh, and actually, I forgot the plant. So that last attack should have done 5, not 4 damage. So let's add an extra one. Of course, now we need 6 damage in order to cause a wound. And the next progression will happen once they're at 3 health. But also look, the vulnerable area has changed. Now he's protecting his head and the rest of his body is completely vulnerable. So we couldn't play this even if we wanted to. Interesting. Okay. So here comes the attrition phase. We do have 1 defense. Oh no, but it's a 2. Luckily, even in stance 2, he's still only doing 1 damage. Okay, so now we're going to discard these in order. And another way of doing that is to just go like this. Draw up to our hand size. Monster's going to turn to the aggro player, still Darian. Oh, and sorry, because of this threaten token, actually should draw 2 of these. Okay, and taking the worst, which was the 2, so that was fine. And now Mira's turn. I think she wants to stay where she is and attack the tail. Now, she could move and still attack. But because of this, we want to get as many hits on the tail as possible. Now, before Mira moves, actually, she has started in the rear, which means that this behavior card is going to activate. Whipping Tail. says that the active player suffers a damage unless they discard a green card from their hand. And then it says that if hit the tail objective has been completed, the card has no effect. If so, remove it from the game. Okay, so we haven't completed hit the tail yet. So I could discard a green card from my hand. Ooh, or I could just take a damage. I think I'm going to take a damage, actually, because I want to keep those cards. Now that card's going to activate at the end of the round. That's what that hourglass means. I think Mira's going to stay where she is. She's not going to move. So she's going to take a threatened. The first action that Mira's going to take is to play Deadly Shot. And that's going to cost 3. So let's go 1, 2, 3. Expensive, but it's going to be super worth it. Now, look at this. That has the aggro. So she's going to collect the aggro token, but Deadly Shot, this is her big card. She's going to get to increase the damage that this attack is going to do by 5 times her weapon level. That's what that means. Now, her weapon level is just 1. It's going to be 5 extra damage. And then this symbol here means that if her mastery card had been flipped over to its focus side, then she would also get to inflict blind. Her mastery is still on its unfocused side. In order to flip it, she just needs to go through her deck 1 time. That hasn't happened yet, so we're just going to have 5 damage plus the 2. That's 7. We then get a volley. Nope, missed on the volley, so that's going to be 7 damage. And then we're going to spend the vulnerable. That's going to make it times 2, so that's going to be 14 damage, I believe. I think that's right from my reading of vulnerable. So 14 damage, and every 6 is a wound, so that's going to be 2 wounds. And 2 more hits here. And now we saved this card. This is going to seem a little weird, but we're going to play Targeted Shot. It's free, which is good. We're out of cards. Once again, it would do something if we had Mastery, which we don't. But because it's a blue card, we actually get to remove one of the struggle tokens. Every time you play a blue card, you remove a struggle token. And look at this. Because we've played 2 offensive cards, we now trigger Hit the Tail. Now we have 2 of the 4 counters that we need on there because we were in the rear. But we played a blue card, so now we're triggering that behavior. Oh no, Wrath of the Dragon. Okay, it says Varaxin turns to the active player. Then we have to place a fire terrain in the front sector. Anytime a fire token is in the same sector as one of these bush tokens, the bush burns up. So we have to get rid of that. The bush would let us hide inside of it by spending a green card, but it's gone now, so we don't have to worry about that. The other thing that the fire token does is it means that we can't play any more cards into our sequence. Now, we don't have any more cards, so we couldn't do it anyway, but that might be a problem in the future. And now, look at here. They can spend a struggle, which they always will if they can. And it says the active player will suffer a damage unless they have a green card in their sequence, which we don't. So that's going to be another wound or another damage. Okay, that wasn't good. And now we're done. We need to do attrition, and she is threatened. So we're going to deal 2 and take the worst. Okay, well, it's a 3. So that's going to be another wound. Boom. She's now down to 5 health. Monster's going to keep facing her because she now has the aggro. And we've hit the end of the round, which means that this behavior is going to trigger. Aggression. Each player in the front sector must immediately move or suffer a damage. Yeah, she's definitely going to move. Okay, it says that then Varaxin turns to the player with the fewest defensive cards in hand. Okay, there we go. Turning back to Darien. And now we're not done because of that symbol right there. That behavior symbol means that it triggers when you trigger another behavior card. So because we triggered that other one, we now have to trigger this one. Flamethrower. Place a fire terrain in the front sector. Oh, shoot. But hey, we got lucky. Can't activate this bottom part because it's completely out of struggle tokens. Whew, we at least dodged that bullet. Now, Varaxon's behavior deck is empty, so we immediately trigger something called escalation. We're going to shuffle this discard pile in order to make a new behavior deck. And then when escalation happens, they just get one struggle. There we go. That's the end of the round. Entering round 3, Varaxon is at half health, so we're doing quite well. We hit the consume phase, and I think, yeah, Mira is definitely going to drink her ale more. So let's read it. It says, consume. Choose a player in your sector to heal 2. If the current attrition level, the attrition value of the top card of the attrition discard pile, is 1 or lower, that player heals 4 instead. The attrition level is at 1 or lower, so she actually gets to heal all 4 of her damage. Perfect. Darien only has 1 damage, so he's going to hold on to his ale. Now we go to monster upkeep. This is the lowest card. And then gains 2 struggle. So back to 3. And now we're back to player turns. Mira has the aggro token, so she becomes first player. Now, one thing we needed to do at the end of the round was we need to flip these fire tokens over to their yellow side. When they're on their yellow side at the end of the round, we'll then remove them. So the fire sort of stays in play over the course of 2 rounds. The problem here is that if she moves, then she'll be moving into a sector with fire and she won't be able to play cards to her sequence. So she's going to have to stay put. Now, if she had moved, she would have gotten to get rid of this threatened token. But because she's standing right where she is, she's going to keep it. And the problem with that is it's going to trigger this reaction. That reaction basically means that if a player, were supposed to take a threatened token, then this would trigger. And so that's what just happened. So let's see what bad things happen. Oh, this isn't good. Firestorm. So Varaxon's going to gain 2 struggle. That's 5 struggle. But Firestorm is going to trigger this peril. And it says, when a behavior card has Firestorm, immediately place a fire terrain in the front sector. Okay, that's pretty bad. Now, instead of adding a fire, because there's already one there, we're just going to flip it back to its red side. And because we added fire to a sector that already had fire, any heroes there are going to suffer the burning condition. Burning means that when we go through our deck, we're going to suffer damage equal to our weapon level. So again, in this case, just 1. But Darien's going to suffer an extra damage when his deck runs out because of the burning. And then we'll get to discard the token. Could have been worse, I suppose. So all of that just happened on Mira's movement phase. She's now going to get to play her actions. Okay, Mira's going to start by playing Decoy. It's going to cost 1. She's going to play this, which says that when you discard this card from your hand, draw 1. This would give her the aggro. She already has it. And it says choose a player to draw 1 card. She's going to have Darien draw a card. Try to set him up for a power turn. She's then going to play Adrenaline Shot. It's blue. Well, hold on. It costs 1. So she'll play this out of her hand. It's blue, so that's going to remove struggle token. And now it says she gets to recycle 1. That basically means she can discard a card from her hand to then draw another one. Okay, now she has to think. No, I think she's going to hold on to these cards. She's not going to play anymore. She has 2 or more cards left in her hand, so she will get one of those stamina tokens. Attrition phase, and she's threatened, so we're going to do 2. Oh, no! Drew the 2, so that's going to be a damage. And she has the aggro, so Varaxon's going to turn to face her, which is exactly what we want. Darian is definitely going to move, and that's going to let him get rid of his threatened token. He's now behind the monster, so he can attack. Oh, wait, he's going to have to pay a stamina to do that movement. Okay, he's going to get rid of that. He's then going to start off by playing Counter-Strike. That has a cost of 1. So we get rid of that. That's not going to do anything yet, but that symbol there means that if you play a red card after this card, then that activates. So let's go ahead and play Dragon Strike. Now, actually, before we do that, Mira is going to play an assist card. So she's going to discard that, and that's going to allow Darian to draw a card. And now to pay for Dragon Strike, he's going to discard it. This is an aggro card, so he's going to take the aggro. And we have sort of 2 things activating here. This one says that if there was a yellow card played before this card, then that activates, and that's just a draw 1. And this one needs a red card after it, and it's going to increase the damage of the attack by 3. So 3 plus 2, that's doing 5 damage. And we'll just discard one of those. That'll be the 6 that we need to create a wound. Unfortunately, now we have to resolve that react. Okay, Blazing Assault. We've seen this before. We're just going to discard 3 cards. There we go. We got our defense. It's then going to spend 2 of its struggle. Back down to 2 in order to do it again. And now our deck has run out, so we're going to have to shuffle our discard pile, form a new deck. And when that happens, you have to take fatigue damage. And that's simply just damage equal to your weapon level. So in this case, 1. But remember, Darian also had this burning token. So that's going to be another wound. Okay, not great. And we're doing this again. 3 more. Uh-oh. Come on. Oh, no. So didn't get it, and that's going to be another wound. Man, the wounds are piling up fast. So next problem, we have this card, right? That one reacts. It's called a Rampage card. It reacts anytime you resolve any of the other behavior cards. Okay, place a fire terrain in the front sector. Man, there's going to be fire all over the board. And then going to spend a struggle token. It says each player in the front sector suffers a damage unless they discard a green card from their hand. Well, she doesn't have a green card, so she'll take a wound. I keep calling those wounds damage. She's just taking damage. All right. That didn't go so great. But we're not done yet. Time to keep attacking with a jumping slice. Now we're going to pay for that with this blue card. And that's important because it says that if you paid with a blue, you can increase the damage of this attack by 3. And we also have the 2 red cards together, which means we're going to be increasing it by 2 more and getting rid of 1 struggle. So that's going to be 2, 4, 7 damage. So we'll just add 1 and boom, another wound. And also, before we forget, that's going to be the second token that we need on his mastery card. And that's another token here on this hit the tail. We are 1 away from activating that. Okay, we now have the 2 tokens we need, so we can flip our mastery card to the focus side. And there we go, Relentless Assault. This is going to let us, for the rest of the game, reduce our stamina cost on all of our red cards by 1. That is fantastic. Okay, there we go. I think Darian's done taking actions. We now have the attrition phase. Perfect. It's a 1, and we have 1 defense card, so we're good. And he has the aggro, so Varaxon's going to face him. Oh, and I almost forgot. We've hit the next progression point. So we actually have to move on from stance 2 to stance 3. Okay, you can see here now it's going to take 8 damage to get a wound. He's going to be doing 2 damage to us. And this has a, when revealed, it says to place a fire terrain in each threatened sector. Now, a threatened sector is just a sector with a player that is threatened. And so we would put a fire up there. There's already one. So Mirror is going to get the burnt condition. Okay, lots of fires. That's actually going to be the end of the round. This fire is going to go away. And the other 2 are going to get flipped to their yellow side. Going to the 4th round. It's the consume phase, and yeah, I think he's going to go ahead and drink his ale more. The attrition level's at a 1, so he's going to heal all 4. We're going to do monster upkeep. Going to get 2 struggle. And Darian has the aggro. So he becomes first player. And unfortunately, right away, we're going to be triggering this reaction. Okay, he's going to gain... So number of players, 2, minus 1 struggle. So he's going to get 1 struggle. Ooh, and gets plus 1 hit until the end of the round. Wow. So he's doing 3 damage. Put that there to remind us. That is not good. And we have escalation again. It's going to get a struggle. Is he going to move? Okay, yeah, he is going to move. Pay this card. Okay, he's then going to play Evasive Step. That's going to cost a card as well. Ugh, okay, he's going to play that one. Actually, no, he'll play that. That's going to let him search for a red card and then shuffle. He's going to get Precise Strike into his deck. He's going to do Battle Cry. It's free. It's going to give him Berserker, which basically means that every time he plays a red card, he'll get to draw a card. He also gains Resilience, which means if he takes damage, then he also gets to draw a card. That's just going to do 2 damage. And we're going to have to resolve that. All right, it's this thing again. Although we have Firestorm also. So let's do this. We're protected. Okay, thank goodness. We're going to put a fire terrain here. And anyone in that sector would be threatened. But luckily he moved away. That was very fortunate. We're now going to do Precise Strike. That costs 3, but minus 1 because of my mastery. And I'm going to pay with this card that gives me 2 stamina. So this attack is going to make him vulnerable. We remember that. And it's going to do 2 plus 2 because we've done 2 red cards. That's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the 8 that we need. Just 2 more health. Attrition time. Oh, it's a 2. Darn it. He had 1 protection, but he got the 2. So he's going to end up taking 3 damage. Ouch. Thank goodness he healed. Oh boy. Okay. Well, Mira definitely has to move. Luckily has this token, can spend that. I think there's no messing around here. We gotta go all in. Boom. We just gotta go straight in with the heavy arrows. That's gonna cost 1. And then it says you can pay 2 stamina to increase the damage of this attack by 6. 6 times your weapon level, which in our case will just be 6. So I am going to do that. I'm going to discard these 2. This bouncing shot says that when you discard this card from your hand, you can perform 2 volley. So we're getting 2 volley, another volley. That's 3 volley. 1, that's a hit. Not a hit. We need to shuffle our deck. Oh, by the way, she moved, so she's no longer threatened. Let's do that 3rd volley. Okay, that failed as well, so that's 1 additional hit. So right now we're doing 9 damage. We're also going to get to upgrade this, but I think we have to wait until we've completed this action. So that's 9 damage times 2, 18 damage. That's going to be a full 2 wounds. Bam, bam. And there you go. That is Varaxin killed. Keep in mind that as soon as you get their health to 0, you automatically instantly win. And so there you go. That was a complete playthrough of the prologue. Now, if we were playing the campaign, we would go on to chapter 1, and we would play through 11 different chapters. And between each boss battle, we'll have all sorts of different things that we can do, including going to the forge and crafting our own weapons and different potions. We'll be leveling up and getting better cards into our action deck. We have this quest board where we'll have different quests that will be going on. We'll be keeping track of everything here on this campaign sheet. And then each player will have their own character sheet as well, where they'll be keeping track of all the different elements that they've collected to do the different crafting, as well as their movement up the skill tree. And the campaign will move you through this massive campaign book, where you'll be encountering all sorts of different bosses to fight. So there is a ton to explore in this game. Hopefully this gave you a sense of how it plays. But that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.